Going on a long motorcycle trip was a challenge to myself.
And if they find out you ride a motorcycle, you get every story.
How would it be to be out so far away from home and have everything you own on your back, so to speak? Terry taught me a lot about handling a motorcycle. He's more experienced than I am.
It was my fourth long trip. I like the motorcycling aspect of it. You're set apart from everybody else. I kind of like promoting motorcycling. But on the other hand, I'm glad that everybody doesn't have a motorcycle. I always enjoy the Black Hills. It's just set up for motorcycles. It's conducive for running roads, as I call it. You don't do it all the time, blasting the pipes. You just do it once in a while. Once or twice a trip, you go through a tunnel. And when you do, you give it hell.
Sometimes you can't help but to think about how vulnerable you are. A machine that's so small, moving so fast.
There's some people that don't ride a lot, and they say, how many miles have you gone? And you say, well, let's see, we just turned about 4,000 miles on this trip. They find it hard to believe that you haven't cracked it up. In fact, sometimes I find it hard to believe that I haven't cracked it up. It's kind of a challenge to find a good place to stay for the night. And you have to start thinking about it while you've still got some daylight, unless you want to fight the dark.
That was a nice part of the trip. No hassle. We got into the campground, we put up our equipment in about 15 minutes. Mornings were up, it took us no more than 20 minutes. Be packed up and away we go.
They'll come over and talk to you. They'll ask you about it because they want to know if maybe they can do it too. Yeah, when it's raining or snowing, the same people that had the idea of maybe doing it, they kind of laugh at themselves for having the idea, and they laugh at you even harder.
You become very interested in climatic conditions. I got to the point where whenever we'd see any kind of cloud in the horizon, we just knew it was going to turn into a thunderstorm. I know right at first, rain used to bother me a lot. You think about coming into a rainstorm and, geez, what are you going to do? Boy, is that going to be miserable being so wet. But you bring along the right kind of clothes and you put them on and you find that you don't get too wet. You find that you can drive the bike in the rain. It slows you down, but it's part of the adventure. It really is.
A lot of times when it starts raining, you're out in the middle of nowhere. And you can sit there and get wet, or you could be riding and get wet. One ranger I talked to mentioned that even if there was no thermal activity at all at Yellowstone, it would probably still be a national park because of the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. It's that spectacular. the geysers, the mud pots, the hot springs. I think it's the only place in North America where they have that kind of activity. And there's only a few other places in the entire world. So people have to think about that a little bit when they're there.
The coldest it got on a trip was in Grand Teton Park. Camping out in 26-degree weather isn't too bad, you know. It kind of feels good to get up in nice crisp air and everything, but the thought of getting on a bike that doesn't have any kind of heater and that's going to develop a wind chill of maybe 0.
You've got to know what you're doing. You've got to put the tent in such a manner that you'll be able to sleep with your head uphill. Because if you put your head downhill, of course, the blood rushes to your head, and the next day, it takes you 2 hours to get straightened out again.
We never went more than maybe 350 or 400 miles a day. Sometimes 150, sometimes only 50. So we had a tremendous amount of freedom that way, and I think that's the only way to really travel like this.
You don't have to hurry up. You know you're not going to get there for 3 hours, or that you don't have to get there for 2 days if you don't want to.
You know, when you're on a bike, you're very aware of things around you. You feel the wind, you could smell things. It extends your senses. Craters of the Moon National Monument in Idaho was probably the strangest place we visited. Just to see a smooth road carved through this rough terrain.
And sometimes you really get out in the wilderness where there isn't much civilization around you. You think, wow, look how far I've gone. You might even start thinking, I wonder if those points are okay, or if those plugs are gonna make it. It was awfully hot in Nevada. And it's a funny thing, we kept praying for hot, and we finally got it, we couldn't stand it.
You drive for 2 hours and you're sweating and you feel uncomfortable. For me, it was miserable. I hadn't got myself conditioned. I wasn't used to being on a motorcycle for any length of time. And I was so tired sometimes that I would walk away from the bike without putting the kickstand down and then fall over.
If the wind's blowing, you think maybe a storm's coming up, well, you might want to set the tent in a certain way where it probably catch the least wind.
You know, there are many beautiful sights in Yosemite Park, but I think the most intriguing to both of us was Bridal Veil Falls.
You look at the map and there you can see the border of where land meets ocean, and you think, gee, here I am. I rode all the way here. I must have done something.
The bike I was riding was a Moto Guzzi 850. One of the nice things about this bike is that it's pretty much maintenance-free.
Repairs, well, that's part of a motorcycle trip. Some motorcycles require more repairs than others. In my case, I have to change both tires on a long trip. It's just something you do. I think sometimes you can just sit on the beach or sit on the cliff overlooking the ocean, like on Highway 1 in the northern part of California, and think about all the different moods of the ocean.
The ocean, to me, is mystical. I've always had a love affair with the ocean.
It is silent. Funny thing, you know, there is a motor sound, but that leaves you. Your brain registers it and then puts it away.
It's another thing, being visible on a motorcycle when you're out on a trip is something you should work at. We always rode with our headlights on. I think that's a big plus.
We got nearly 4,000 now, probably about 6, I suppose, something like that.
In Northern California, we met an interesting group called the Retreads. One prerequisite for joining the group is that you have to be over 40.
Well, we got about a month set aside.
Oh, gee.
Doesn't matter to me because I had quit my job to go. I do it every year.
then you go back to a different job, or
Yeah, I
what?
got to find something else when you get back. Nobody will give you that much time off.
No.
Just sit there and thinking about it isn't doing you any
That's
good.
right. Might as well go while you can. You're not married, huh?
Yeah, that could put a damper on it, I suppose.
That's part of the motorcycle trip to me. In fact, it's a big part, is talking to people, finding out what they're doing, where they're at, and of course they want to know the same about you. Crater Lake is one of my favorite places. I just like looking at that lake, the way it sits in the bowl that it's in, actually. And the color is so vivid when the sun's out. It's a very, very deep blue. Being on a motorcycle out on a long, lonesome road gives you time to think, so you can think about anything. I guess you think about how far away you are from home on this little machine.
When you look down, you're looking right over the edge on a motorcycle. I mean, that's something you just wouldn't have in a car. Maybe something you wouldn't want to have, you know, if you're, halfway sane. Things that made me happy about the trip were I did master the machine. I controlled it. It didn't control me. I got good at it, and it's something that not a whole lot of people have done. That makes you feel good. Terry kept hoping I would want to keep going on because he wanted to extend the trip. 3 weeks of solid driving is enough for me. After we broke up, he went up 1,500 miles of dirt roads into Alaska. So he doubled what I did.
I think when we parted, there was all kind of good and bad feelings. Good feelings for Gene that he was going home, that he felt like going home. And good feelings for me that I was still able to stay on the road. And maybe bad feelings that it was too bad we couldn't finish the trip together. So I think there was mixed emotions. But I knew from the start that I had to stay out as long as possible and see and do as much as I could on my motorcycle.